Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special episode of TechStack. We have Mark on site at the Apple event coming up next. Welcome back to TechStack, everyone. We have a special episode for you. Our man Mark is on site live at the Apple event, where Apple just unveiled new iPhones, new AirPods, and new Apple Watches. Mark, I know it's kind of crazy over there and you have to be quick, so why don't you give us your initial impressions first? How'd Apple do?
Well, thanks, Marco. I really, my expectations were relatively low. A lot of the stuff was leaked over the last couple of days. But when you got into the minutia, I was actually quite impressed. Now, it was very much a rinse and repeat type of announcement. I think they did what they had to do with the phones. They announced an iPhone, the 17 Air, which is an incredibly thin iPhone that seems to have a lot of professional feature capability. Got obviously a thinner battery, but the battery component doesn't seem to be a showstopper. Would love to get your opinion, Marco. I think they did a nice job of announcing a new generation of the AirPods, which are really nice. They're actually deploying their language translation capability on that, which they announced at WWDC, which I think is really big. A brand new family of Apple Watches, but I was generally impressed. There was something showstopper like. No new iPads that will probably be coming later in the year, I suspect. I really think for those people who are looking to be motivated to upgrade, Apple probably gave them, a variety of good reasons to make the plunge.
Yeah, I was generally impressed. Let's just go through quickly everything that was launched. Let's start with the latest AirPods. There was AirPods Pro 3, and they showed the live translation feature. I thought the video was fairly impressive, especially when you had two people both using them together, speaking different languages. What was the reaction like when Apple showed that off?
Well, again, that's a really good question, Marco, because, again, being at the Steve Jobs Theater, you do get kind of a reaction from the people there. Now, keep in mind, there's a lot of influencers here, lots of pro-Apple people. But I agree with you, that live translation demo was very impactful, that you could have two-way conversations. So that was a pretty big deal, and I was impressed with that. I assume that your reaction was pretty positive as well.
Yeah, it was like the first time I thought we were getting close to the Star Trek Universal Translator there. It was a really impressive demo. In other features for the AirPods, we're going to turbo this because I think the iPhones are the star of the show here. They also fit a little better battery life, up to 8 hours now. Anything else that I missed that we should point out with the AirPods?
Yeah, they did have AirPods here for me to try on. It's a very noisy environment, so it's hard to really judge them. But they did announce very impressive, exponentially better noise cancellation capability. And they also, by the way, some of their hearing disability features that they announced not too long ago, they've enhanced some of that as well. But I really think, the AirPods market, as you know, market is a very, very big market. It's a very big business for them. So for those people who are waiting for the latest generation of Pro earbuds, I think they're going to do very well over the holiday selling season.
I think so too. They're clearly better than the previous gen. Lots of cool new features, same price at $249. So I don't think there's much to complain about there at all. Let's quickly jump to the Apple Watches. I think, in my opinion, the Apple Watches were probably the most iterative. But I got to tell you, the teaser video they played, it touched me a little bit. All the people that had their lives saved by the Apple Watches. Yeah, what are your thoughts there?
No, I thought that was brilliant marketing because they really opened with that. And they've been going down the path, as you know, Marco. They really positioning the Apple Watch brand as a health brand, for sleep apnea, for checking certain vital signs that you have on your body. But they're also a tremendous safety feature as well, with fall down detection, which is a huge feature. I can testify to that because it helped my mother in a couple of different situations. A couple of years ago when she fell down, and I wasn't home to see that. So I really think they did a nice job. They've added 5G capability to their cellular support, which I think is a big deal. A lot of emphasis, and this will play into the iPhone conversation. they're really making a lot of noise over extracting every bit of battery life value out of their silicon capability, and especially with the Apple Watches. Now, they also announced a new iteration of the Apple Watch, the Ultra, the Ultra 4. I'm sorry, the Ultra 3, not the 4, but the 3. And that's a really, really nice watch. I mean, if you're really looking for primo smartwatch capabilities, that is really the go-to watch to get, because it has unbelievable battery life. I want to say that I think it was 46 hours, 44 hours. I mean, that's pretty impressive for a smartwatch. So I was impressed with that.
Yeah, so for those that didn't see the Apple announcement, there was actually all three, the entire family of Apple Watches were updated. So new Apple Watch SE 3, new Apple Watch Ultra 3, and Apple Watch Series 11 all were announced today. In terms of their physical design, they all look very similar to previous gen. But again, so that point Mark brings up about the better battery life and optimal power efficiency, that's one of Apple's, that's sort of their secret sauce, being completely vertically integrated, right? They control the software, they control the hardware now, they really control everything and can analyze the entire system and fine tune for battery life. And I agree that the Apple Watch Ultra is a really cool product, but $799 is a steep ask for a smartwatch, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on pricing for those guys?
Well, I think $799 is a high price point. I mean, that is I would call that an Apple fanboy price point. And there are obviously less expensive Apple smartwatches out there. But as you know, this is all about the ecosystem. And those people who are into the ecosystem, they probably won't blush at all at paying $799 for a smartwatch. And by the way, that new Ultra watch has a slightly bigger display. And even though the Apple Ultra watch already had a very large display, it really is nice to see. When you see it up in person, and I encourage you to go to a store to see that, it's quite impressive having a really nice large display on your wrist.
Yeah, so Apple Watch Ultra 3, larger display, but inside the same chassis with better viewing angles and brightness too, so it should be easier to view outside. And Apple Watch SE 3, $249, and Apple Watch Series 11, $399. So essentially the same starting price points as the previous gen.
Correct.
But now let's get nuts and speak some iPhones now. I thought the iPhone 17 Pro looked like a nice upgrade, but a lot of the talk is going to be around the iPhone 17 Air, totally new design. Have you got your hands on it yet? Have you physically been able to touch the Air yet, Mark?
I did. I did play with it a little bit. It is amazingly thin. I want to say it's only 5.3 is it 5.6 or 5.3?
5.6 millimeters, yeah.
5.6, yeah. I mean, that's incredibly thin. I mean, the trade-off, of course, you're making is that there is a thinner battery in that phone. Now, Apple, as you know, Marco, they don't like to talk in terms of the physical size of the battery. They don't like to talk in milliamps like a lot of technology companies do. They talk in terms of hours. And the reason why they do that is that's a number that most consumers can wrap their head around. And they're promising some even with that thin form factor, they're promising some very impressive battery life that I think for most people, they can get away with a day. Now, when you flip over to the, and we're going to talk about this in a second, to the Pro models, obviously, battery life is going to get a lot more significant because you can have a larger battery in either of those form factors, either the standard one or the Max. But I think there will be customers out there that are willing to take a slightly, a haircut on battery life, even though it may not be that significant. But it's going to be a fashion statement. It's a really good-looking phone.
Yeah, I thought the design looked really pretty. To see the official design, that gloss polished titanium chassis looks great. The phone the camera bump out kind of thick. It kind of blows the 5.6 millimeter argument out of the water. The rest of the body's 5.6 millimeters, but it really does seem like an innovative design. And if it's rigid and as strong as Apple claims, during the Prezzo, Apple claimed it's stronger than any previous gen iPhone. So it shouldn't be problems with warping or bending. And yeah, I think as long as it gets all day battery life, like Apple claims, that thin form factor, I think it's going to be really popular.
Well, and that reference, Marco, for those of you in the audience who are old enough, that's probably a reference. Remember the Bengate
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
That where you could sit on the phone, you could sit on the larger form factor phone and bend it, even though that I won't go into that, but I think that was kind of
Yeah.
they wanted to make sure that this form factor has tremendous durability, and in your hands, even though it's incredibly thin, it's very, very tough, very, very unless you want to do it purposely, and no one's going to ever do that purposely. So I think they're going to have a winner there. The other thing I
Yeah,
would
I
call
think so
out,
too.
go ahead. The other
No,
thing I would call
I think
out,
so too. I think it's going to be a winner as well.
yeah, the other thing I would call out, Mark, I want to get your reaction. Is there was not a whole lot of talk about AI during the announcement. Of course, most of the AI stuff was referenced during the WWDC release a few weeks ago. But I was really impressed with one feature that's camera related, and I want to say it's called it's the same feature on the desktop. A center cam, is it center cam or
I'm not
stage
sure.
cam? I think it, but what it basically does, it uses AI to, if you have, let's say, 2 or 3 or 4 people in the frame, it'll
Yep.
automatically adjust. And I thought that was an incredibly interesting feature that I think most consumers can say, you know what, if AI can help me with something like that, and I don't have to fudge around with taking my selfies, that could be a really, really cool feature to have.
Yeah, I thought Apple did 2 things really smart with the selfie cams on these new iPhones. First, it's a larger square sensor now, so
Yes,
there's
yes.
no need to rotate the phone for different orientations because the AI will automatically frame you, just using the feature Mark was just talking about,
Right,
automatically frame you and automatically detect people coming into the frame. So yeah, I think
right.
that's really cool. And you know, those quality of life features that just add to the experience, that's really where Apple excels. And I think that's how they sell iPhones, is that kind
Yep,
of experience. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that was really cool to show off and to back it up with new hardware. Obviously a great idea.
right. And the other thing, before we kind of sign off here, the other thing that kind of struck me was they didn't monkey around with price points. I was kind of expecting maybe a somewhat modest bump in price points. They didn't do that. They did
Yep.
introduce, now it's purely for the content creators of the world, they did introduce a 2 terabyte iPhone Pro model, which, I mean, Marco, you and I are old enough, 2 terabytes in a smartphone. I mean, it's
You
hard for
need
me to
it.
wrap my head around.
You need it, Mark. We should quickly. I know that you're running out of time. We'll quickly just cover the camera. So, new 48 megapixel fusion cameras in the higher
Yes,
end models.
yes,
Better selfie cams. I believe it was up to 18 megapixels on the selfie cams to have that
right,
flexibility. And there's also newer optics in basically all of the phones, and new photo engines, basically increased quality across the board. Did you get
right.
to kind of play with the cameras app yet? And anything that you can say about the cameras at this point?
They had some photography out here, and they of course during the presentation they showed a number of high res photos that were taken with the camera by professional photographers, and it truly is unbelievable. I think we're at the point now, and we've been at the point at this for some time, I know, but even more so now. You really have to find a very specific reason to go out and buy a DSLR. I can't, they increased the zoom capability. We should have talked about that for a second on the Pro models. I thought that was an interesting advantage. It's really hard to justify going out and buying a standalone camera anymore. I mean, now there are unique situations that if you're a professional that you may want to have a DSLR. I know, Marco, I know you're kind of a specialist in that
Yeah,
area,
I'll fight
but
you to the death on this one, Mark.
uh, well, but 98% of regular consumers,
Yeah.
even more
Yep.
sophisticated, they can get by with an iPhone Pro.
Oh no, absolutely no question. There's a reason that the point and shoot camera market absolutely collapsed the last couple decades, right?
Exactly.
It's the iPhone and it's the smartphones.
Right.
You mentioned AI. One thing that I usually complain about after Apple events is lack of technical detail, but I thought they did a really good job. In terms of the audience, right? They're not going to do a technical deep dive on the new processors. But the A19 and A19 Pro to disclose, processor core configurations, the new neural engines built into the GPU, the power efficiency innovations. I thought they kind of balanced the technical stuff with the more, markety retail kind of stuff really well. What about you? What do you think about that?
No, I think they're really good observation. And you have to wonder, because you're right, Apple tends not to really try to geek out on highly technical features that only guys like you and me really care about. But they went into a little bit greater depth. And my hypothesis, and I could be wrong, when you're dealing with companies like Qualcomm, which is doing some terrific stuff with their Snapdragon stuff, Qualcomm has no qualms at all. Qualms, there you go, Qualcomm's qualms, going into technical detail. So I think Apple is probably in a position where they probably have to open the kimono a little bit and reveal a bit more technical information than they normally would. But that was kind of my reaction to that. But I agree with you on the general. I think they struck the right balance between marketing messaging and technical specifications.
Yep. And you bring up Qualcomm. It's important to point out, I believe it's all of these iPhones have the new C1X modem. So apparently it was really quick. And they just said basically, faster, more power efficient modem in the presentation. But in only 6 months, Apple now has C1X. So it was all of the iPhones have C1X now. So all Apple silicon basically across the board from processor to modem, right?
Yeah, we can discuss Apple's issues with modems and Qualcomm to the cows go home. But I think the fact that they've had their first foray into the modem business with their own design for some time, they have to have a lot of confidence. Now, I'm sure there's going to be benchmarks out there. There's going to be all kinds of people challenging, is it as good as a Qualcomm design modem? We'll see what plays out. But I mean, certainly from a confidence standpoint, they wouldn't roll out their own design across their professional models unless they felt very, very confident in the performance of their modems.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out in the coming months. Coincidentally, I just saw a report from Ookla, who runs the speed test website, that showed that Qualcomm was still offering superior speeds to the C1. But, Apple's here saying C1X is faster with more feature support. So I guess we'll see how that shakes out. Mark, anything else that we should cover? Anything else you want to drive home before we wrap things up?
No, I mean, my only little kind of summary to this was that I think most people here, a lot of the analysts, guys like me, they walk in here with expectations that were relatively modest. And I think Apple beat those expectations. I think they've set themselves up for a great holiday quarter, especially with the new AirPods, but even with the new iPhone Air, because that is essentially a new category for them from a phone standpoint. So I think it was a worthwhile event, and I think if you're an Apple guy, you're probably very happy.
I think even if you're not an Apple guy, like anybody that knows me, going back to my Commodore days 30 years ago, Apple is not my focus, but I actually came away impressed. I had been following the rumors for weeks, and after seeing the full presentation, it seems like they tick a lot of right boxes. I could see a lot of folks shopping for a smartphone, smartwatch, or earphones. Really kind of impressed with the whole product stack. So I don't think there's much to complain about at all. And we have a whole new family with the iPhone 17 Air. So lots of good stuff.
Right.
And with that, I think we should wrap things up. I want to thank you for hanging out with us with this special episode of TechStack with Mark on site over at Apple. Mark, why don't you say goodbye to everybody and we'll close things out.
Goodbye from Cupertino.